Okay, so Jody and Ellen, do we have everyone in there?
Yep.
Great.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our holiday edition of the Cross Country Check-In. Doug is joining us via phone tonight. He had a day on the slope, so lucky Doug. I could probably mow my lawn here in Nova Scotia, so I don't know if we'll have a white Christmas, but I hope everyone's well. Thanks for joining us tonight and taking time out of your busy schedules, especially this time of year when I know everybody's ready to kind of maybe gear down a little bit and maybe pivot or change directions and take some time for a little R&R and a little self-care. So welcome to everyone tonight, and thanks for joining us. Doug?
Hello, everyone. It's good to see you. I don't have my video on because I'm driving back from Jasper, like Lori said. But yeah, it's great to see lots of familiar faces. And Amanda Beekman, it's been forever. Nice to see you. Yeah, awesome. So welcome. And yeah, we're just hoping to have
We're kind of losing you, Doug.
chance to share.
So we wanted to just kind of bring everyone back together and check in. We know it's been a busy fall for everyone. And
regroup a little bit before the break, and then okay.
So yeah, like Doug was saying, we wanted to regroup before the break. We know it's been a busy fall and a fall like none other. And so just wanted to kind of bring everyone back together, have a conversation, check in, see how things are going. You know, what were some of the successes that you've had this year, and what are some of the things that maybe surprised you, and maybe new practices or things that you would never have considered prior to teaching in a pandemic, but now maybe something that you want to continue doing as we move forward, and you know, maybe some of the things that you're looking forward to over the holidays, and some self-care practice. So yeah, just kind of wanted to see how things are going with everyone. Anyone have a kind of a good news story that we can kick off with? It's crickets.
Hi, Lori. It's Kelly Baker from Newfoundland Labrador. How's everybody?
Hey, Kelly.
So I guess I'll start with, I find a lot of people are blaming all the bad on COVID, and I'm starting to blame the good. So, oh, you know, we got to try this new thing. We got to try this new approach. We got to do it differently because of COVID. So it's allowed me the opportunity to try new things, do things differently, and everybody kind of be more accepting of it because you blame it on COVID. And it's really worked out well. I have people in my classes who have never participated in any physical activity at the school before, and now they're playing intramurals and playing for the school teams. I have other people in classes saying things like, I've never worked so hard in my life before. I've never sweat in phys ed before, except they're still calling it gym because this is the first year they've had me for a teacher. So just a lot of good stuff like that has been wonderful, and I'm using COVID as the excuse.
That's awesome, Kelly. And did you find, like with your students and even with your fellow teachers, that there's a bit more of a willingness to try something different or try something new?
Was that for me or for anyone?
For you, but anyone can answer.
Um, uh, I think it was a slow process. I think that the adults were more ready for it than the students. But I think that everybody's gotten a lot more open over the time that that we've been working through the pandemic. The teachers at my school, I've been sending on tons and tons and tons of physical activity stuff they can do in their class, and I'm getting more and more and more positive feedback about that. You know, people constantly now saying, these are great ideas, thanks for this. Sending me pictures of what they're doing in their classrooms, posting pictures of the physical activity that they're doing in their classroom on the weekly or on the bi-weekly memo. So yeah, I think that it's been a slow process, but I really find that people are more willing to and more open to trying new things, trying things differently. And people, I gotta say, are, you know, just loving the increased physical activity. I'll just be interested to see what happens, you know, when it's not this way. Like, will people continue to value the physical activity in their classroom in addition to the physical education we have? Or, you know, will we go back to the pressure of being so overwhelmed by outcomes from all the different courses that social emotional learning will take a back seat again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. And Grant just put up in the chat as well, just that's amazing, Grant. So 352 hampers, so 352 families, Grant?
Mic up, mic on. Yes, Lori. Yeah, it was one of those duties as assigned that I wasn't quite expecting and at this time compared to what I'm normally doing. But you know, technology and shared documents, everyone kind of figured it out. And yeah, local grocer, where the division's paying for them, of course, but the local grocer is able to fulfill all of them. And yeah, so 352 families that, you know, normally schools are able to do that, but we want to take a hands-off approach this year, and some schools still raise money, but it's all coordinated through a local grocer. So we're helping out a local business and able to help some families at a time when they can really use it. So it's, yeah, it's good news.
Wow, that's awesome. Sometimes those other duties as assigned end up being some of the best experiences that you have, the ones that you weren't expecting to be involved in. And so that's amazing. So, you know, for me, one of the things this fall, and actually since COVID really kind of started for all of us, is that being able to work with a group of individuals or a group of people that are passionate and like-minded and willingness to share. And, you know, I think one of the highlights of 2020 for me are these check-ins and the people that I've met and the connections that I've made. You know, and Renee is on the call tonight, and you know, Renee has came into to my BED class twice and shared her expertise on sexual health education. And it was amazing to see how these pre-service teachers just, you know, they just absorbed the information and were just so thrilled to have someone with expertise in a subject area that they were quite fearful of teaching, and to dispel a lot of myths. And, you know, prior to COVID happening, you know, there wasn't necessarily a whole lot of that kind of cross-country collaboration. And, you know, it was amazing. And it's been happening, you know, I think in a lot of our circumstances where we've been networking and developing these relationships with people that we may not normally have been able to. So that's been such a great thing for me.
Yeah, I'll echo that, Lori, in terms of, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I think our circles have kind of expanded, mostly because we were forced to, but it's been a good opportunity to connect with people I might not have had an opportunity to connect with I might see them at a conference every second year or something. And so even just, I had an opportunity to present at one of the Ontario additional certification classes at York University that George Curtis was teaching. I just had a great conversation with a bunch of teachers in Ontario that I never would have met. So, I mean, there's lots of crap that's going on that we don't like, and it's not great, but to find those pieces and be able to move forward is really good.
Anybody else have any kind of highlights?
Hello, can you guys hear me on here?
Yeah, hi Cyril.
Oh, hey, okay, so, yeah, sorry, I hope, I can't see the chat, I'm in my car here, just heading home from work, but didn't want to miss it. But when it comes to that piece on relationships there, like, it's been pretty cool, like, now, Winnipeg anyways, or in our school division, our classes are cohorted, so really, really small classes, so like I'll have classes of 8 to 12, but I kind of look back at how much, like, in that smaller class, like how much like we've laughed together, because it's like it's kind of a tighter knit crew now. That's all they got in their phys ed class, right? So we've laughed a ton. They know each other well. The banter has been pretty, has been really funny at times. And there's been some students that, like, I think Kelly had mentioned this early on, but it just was some students who have taught and who haven't said, when a class of 35 or 40, they won't say 2 words all year, but now we're really come out of their shell because in a class of 6 or 8, they can, tell a joke here or there. So that part, obviously, that's not sustainable for education to go that way, but that piece I've really enjoyed, getting to know the kids, having less of them in there per time, and laughing a lot with them. So anyways, thanks.
That's awesome. And yeah, we say often teaching is about relationships first. You develop the relationships and then the content comes. But it's getting to know each other and developing that sense of community within your class. And then, everything else grows from there. So what a great opportunity for some of our students to have that, finally have an experience where they're finding joy in a class where they may not have had it in the past.
Yeah, Lori, I feel the exact same. I echo exactly what was just said. I was called into a high school recently, and I taught a couple of puberty lessons to grade 8s, and they were co-ed classes, and I've been teaching puberty for years now, and this was the first time that these students, since they're in the cohorts, they're so comfortable with each other. It was really a beautiful learning experience for them. It was just easier for everybody because they felt so comfortable with each other. They could ask questions. They didn't feel embarrassed. They just wanted to learn so much. And they were excited for the anonymous question part of the lesson. And it was beautiful to see these relationships and how close knit they've all become. And it's like they're a family away from home. So yeah, I completely agree with that.
Has anybody else been kind of experiencing that, or have your courses kind of gone in a different direction? For us, that we've gotten smaller cohorts, I think, that 15 to 20 students max in a class for us here in Nova Scotia, in my region of Nova Scotia. But I'm not sure if others are experiencing the same thing, or if your classes have changed.
Lori, I can answer. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. On behalf of one of the schools in my district, I work as a subject coordinator for phys ed, but that is how in Quebec a lot of the schools have been having smaller groups because any given class has kind of been split in two. And one thing that's been really neat to see is one particular high school added me to their Google Classroom, and just to see the way they've been using Google Classroom to stay in touch with students between phys ed classes. Just a lot of kind of the flipped classroom approach, and it's just been really neat to see what they're sending home for students to do at home and how they can communicate, tell them to be ready for the weather the next day and outdoors. So just a lot more messages and communication, which in Quebec, phys ed is mandatory at all levels, but it's a relatively low subject time. So sometimes it's 2 on 9 periods, or 2 days out of 9, or 2 days out of 6. So it's been neat to see Google Classroom be used more and more as a way to keep in touch with students between classes.
And so have the students been communicating back, or has it been like one-way communication?
No, a lot, like there's been a decent number of assignments that have been given out on Google Classroom too. So students are responding and posting, posting back that way too.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been anybody else experiencing that kind of increased connection with students through all of this?
Actually, I hope I'm not cutting anybody off here again, but I'll speak to one thing too, which is like I was just thinking about it here. I don't know how, like attendance. So, you know, like for my grade 11s and 12s, somehow, some way, like my attendance has been like through the chart, like really, really good, except for the ones that aren't supposed to be there for, you know, various reasons, right? But, you know, I think maybe in the way that it is in our school division, they basically come for a half day each day, right? But that's basically the only time they have to see their friends. So, you know, 11s and 12s that are supposed to be there, that aren't, you know, that meet the screening requirements, they come, which is, hasn't been, I haven't had that high of a successful attendance rate in any other year. I would like to think it's because, you know, I'm pretty sweet in the here for me, but that's probably not the case. It might just be because, but yeah, yeah. So not something, of course, like that piece of them not being able to see half the school, not something that I'd wish upon them, but for that, but now they're coming when they're supposed to be here. So that's another just, you know, positive thing we're finding the positives where we can.
Yeah, that's all you, Cyril. They're just there for you, buddy.
Doug, I'm glad you said that. Cyril, it's Grant. I'm on the call, so I just recorded that section, just so you know.
What is that? That's right. Well, that's what I tell them.
It's all true, folks. It's all true. No, it's good news.
No, it's good.
Lori asked one of the highlights, and I think, you know, every person on this call and those across the country, I think one of the highlights has been the support from Peachy Canada and the staff and the Learning Center. It has been unbelievable, the work that the staff at Peachy Canada have done. You know, to the point where it actually shocked me. My direct supervisor has referenced it a couple of times in our meetings about, you know, as a go-to source. So, you know, congratulations to everyone involved in that. I know Ryan is on the call and a couple of the others, but it hasn't gone unnoticed, folks. It's been really, really good. So for that,
Yeah,
well done, folks.
absolutely. And I think, you know, I think, Grant, with that too, is I think not just the quality, but also the quantity and the consistency. You know, they've just been, you know, working so diligently to support all of us, and it's been amazing. I know in Nova Scotia, all the documents have been referenced in our back to school plans, and our minister has also mentioned them, referenced them. So it's really cool to see that happening, and I don't know if there would be another time in our history where we would have so many provinces and ministries looking to PHE as that go-to source. So you know, like you said, find the successes where we can. And Kelly mentioned just being able to come together at a time when her fuel tank was getting pretty low, and just how excited she is to kind of be in this call and this conversation. And I think I feel the same. It's you know, the past couple of weeks especially have been quite hectic here in Nova Scotia, and I know it's no different across the country. And you know, the sands are still shifting under our feet on a regular basis, and so just having people to talk to who understand and who are experiencing the same thing is really great. You know, also wondering just around kind of some self-care things. And you know, we talk about self-care a lot, and but we're not maybe the greatest at practicing what we preach when it comes to self-care. And so just kind of curious as to how all of you have been kind of managing and you know, trying to thrive during this time and not just survive. Lots of long walks with the dog. Absolutely.
I'm not sure, Lori, if this lends itself to more self-care, but what I've noticed in the schools is just leaders at every level. Like I've just as somebody that's external now walking into a school, I've seen janitorial staff go above and beyond. I've seen bus drivers do things that I've never seen before in terms of helping and supporting not just their job, but people around them and children, parents, and then for the staff, but even students within the school, just showing leadership for younger students. I've just seen really great things around that. So seeing leaders at every level has been, I think, supportive, and I think it's energizing as well too. People have fed off of that and have noticed the efforts that people have made, and I think that's a really great thing.
That's a great point, Reg. I think one thing I've noticed too is different or new people stepping up and doing some things who maybe wouldn't have before. So that's super helpful.
I'm teaching online phys ed now, and it's been pretty interesting because some of the most disengaged kids before the pandemic are actually the most engaged right now, and I'm really hoping that post pandemic that that those children will have a chance to shine just like they are, where because they feel safe and comfortable, and as educators we've been able to create a really nice relationship with them, and so when it does end, I think that I'm really hopeful for all of our kids moving forward. I think they've shown the most resiliency, to be honest.
So someone came up with, you know, and I think too, someone said random acts of kindness, and that is so true. And also, Reg, to your point, is that I've noticed that as well, walking into schools, there seems to be more connectedness between whether it's the school administrator or the cafeteria staff, the custodians, they all seem to be pulling in the same direction. And you can kind of feel that collective when you go into schools, where, you know, before I think it was a little more siloed in their work. And yeah, it's quite different. So, you know, I've seen cafeteria staff go out onto the playground, you know, after they've finished serving lunch, so that teachers can take a break and then go in and get their own lunch. Like, it's just, typically that hasn't happened in the past. So we're starting to see, I think, a little more camaraderie within our buildings, within the staff, which is really great. And, you know, when it came up to the random acts of kindness, one of the things that has happened in our building is over the past couple of weeks is that people are getting mugged. And so people are getting a mug and a hot chocolate or a tea or, you know, a small bag of coffee, and getting left on their desks, and, you know, with the note saying you've been mugged, and, you know, to go and mug someone else. And, you know, just, and no one knows who started it. And it's just cut on, and it's gone through all 3 floors of our building. And it was just that little simple thing that someone started, and it's made a huge difference. You know, people are laughing and they're walking by and they're going, have you been mugged? You know, and so it's just, you know, sometimes it's the small, simple things that bring joy. And, you know, so that's just something that's been happening in my office space, which I thought was really awesome. Anybody else have anything they want to share?
I can add, it's not teacher well-being, but just on the well-being front. I've seen a lot of teachers do more mindfulness activities with students as well, especially high school teachers who are in the hybrid models. So they're sometimes seeing their students online, sometimes at school. And I know there's been a lot of awareness for that online time of not necessarily wanting to contribute to more screen time and trying to give students a break from that. So I've seen a lot of really interesting assignments that have sort of had students check in at the beginning and then go for walks and really focus on mindfulness activities or questions or pictures that they need to take and then share when they're back. So that's been kind of really neat to see.
I think it's really pushed our comfort zone and to kind of really push us to be more creative in how we think or how we, you know, deliver curriculum or think curriculum needs to be completed or outcomes need to be met. And, you know, that creative piece, yeah, go for a walk in your neighborhood and take pictures of, you know, 3 or 4 things and come back and share, you know, can be just as meaningful as, you know, an activity where, you know, we're face to face. It just, our approach to it is can be a little different.
Yeah. Hi, Laurie and crew. I guess that's some of the commentary I've heard from our phys ed staff is because they've been outside since the beginning of September.
Mm-hmm.
They've had to literally rethink how they deliver phys ed, and it's a good thing in many cases. And, you know, as much as we have, you know, loved our curriculum since it was released, it is very, very dense. And so this has really forced, I think teachers, and maybe Cyril can speak to this, is, you know, it's forced them to, you know, pull the helicopter up to about 30,000 feet instead of hovering down in the woods and, you know, trying to deliver on some of those really obscure outcomes. Really looking at the broader approach to phys ed and why we're here and what the benefits of being physically active in terms of the mind, body, and soul that some of you others have talked about. So I think that's a good thing. And hopefully it continues, because it has, I think it really has engaged more students, because it hasn't been the traditional phys ed, even though, you know, we've got some really good programs, but because it's outside, I think it's been more accessible to kids because they don't feel that pressure of the observation inside a 4-wall gymnasium.
I agree, Grant. Totally agree. That I think that by sort of broadening the outcomes and you know, maybe getting back to just enjoying playing with each other and providing that different outlook, it's been really good. And it also showed up in the chat too, where I see more kids taking what they're learning now and taking it home and playing with their parents and utilizing that time. And because we don't have as much maybe structured sport after school, and I'm just seeing that, you know, that's anecdotal, but I think it's all connected, and that's a really good thing. So.
I know,
So-
just in my own neighborhood, you know, seeing families out recreating together. You know, they're either, you know, they could be biking, they could be rollerblading, they could be taking the dog for a walk, and also seeing road hockey start up again. You know, for many, many years, I had not seen that in my neighborhood. And, you know, now, you know, I could be out in my yard after work and I can hear car. And so the net comes off the street and the kids scatter, and then, you know, they come back in. And it's just those things. I think those meaningful play opportunities during non-school hours have kind of resurfaced, which I think is great for our kids and great for our communities.
So how do you, for the folks on this call, how do you think we harness that? I don't know if it's energy or if it's a difference of people realizing the importance of these types of things to their own circumstances, but how do we harness that in our programs moving forward? How do we kind of capture that and keep it going?
Doug, it's Kelly here. I think one way is to, I know this year my administration has been a lot more accepting of me wanting to put things in the newsletter. So every single newsletter, there's a PE news, sport news, intramural news, health and wellness news. And it takes up probably about a third to a half of the newsletter. And I think that that's something that we can harness and keep going if we start it now, because what is the reason to stop that in the future? Like once you start that, how can somebody legitimately give you a reason for not including that anymore? So I think that's one way. And I've seen a lot of, like what people were talking about earlier, that translating into at home types of things, because I've been putting links. So I've been telling them what we're doing in phys ed, and then I've been putting links in case they want to try some things at home. And a lot of families have been really appreciative of that. And I either had my worst or best parent-teacher interview. A parent came into the interview and said that their child was very disappointed in phys ed this year because they didn't only play dodgeball anymore. So I'm still trying to figure it out if that's my best or worst interview yet.
That's a win, Kelly. That's a win. Thanks for sharing.
The pandemic, it has affected us all. So it kind of puts us all not on the same playing field, but we are all connected by the pandemic. So it allows us to feel a connection with each other because we're all experiencing similar things. And I think that in order to continue what's happening is to remind people, and I'm not sure exactly how you do that, whether that's in your daily or your words or narratives that you bring up, but yeah, that how we all connect, we all, enjoy certain things together, or we all are capable being this way or supporting each other. I think if you can put kind of a positive spin on a pandemic, is that we're all experiencing it, no matter your age or gender, anything. We are all connected. We're all, and I think it helps people feel a part of something. So that's kind of what's spinning off in my mind right now.
Yeah, thanks, Renee. I think that's an important point, is that, how can we keep, if we have health and phys ed being a better part of the school community and the broad community, then continuing to harness that and continuing to make those connections so that people feel that this is not just feel, but that they experience the benefits.
I think, one of the old sayings is that you don't know what you're missing. And for many people who've never experienced the positive feelings and outcomes that come with movement and the joy of movement, I think we're starting to see some of those people have those experiences now. And so, like Kelly said, now that we've got the ball rolling, that we've got some people engaged that we never had engaged prior, to go back would be really, really quite challenging. Now the expectation is a little more embedded, I think, into what schools, what school communities, what parents, what students now are expecting when it comes to, supporting health and well-being of everyone. And so, just whether it's having a really great opportunity to explore different movement skills in PE, or a different look on how PE is offered, whether it's outdoor education or it could be an independent activity to, really in-depth conversations about social and emotional well-being in a health class. That I think now that we've established that, it would be really challenging to argue against it and move us backwards. Or maybe that's just my rose-colored glasses.
Hi, Scott, Quebec. How are you? I'm just, this is great. I thought there was a real paradigm switch when our Ministry of Education decided in terms of evaluation to switch to 2 terms. You don't have to evaluate our 3 competencies in the first term. They left it up to the individual teacher. So left it up to the professionalism of the teacher, how they were going to evaluate and what they were going to evaluate. And I think when that happened, teachers relaxed. And then they could delve into what they were doing without the worry of, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do this. Now they were able to explore other things without worrying about the evaluation hanging over their head before Christmas in November. But in Quebec now, we have 2 terms, and January and the end of the year. So that, a lot of pressure off the teachers, and some of them have really excelled. And it's created a better working environment for them, I feel.
I'm just doing a quick monitor of the chat.
And I just like to add, I don't know how many other subject areas are doing the same thing that we're doing right now. I'm not sure. I haven't heard of any doing cross-Canada check-ins in terms of science teachers or anything like that. So our phys ed community, as far as I know, is the only one that's having a cross-Canada check-in with people from across Canada.
Yeah, I think these conversations are, I think, unique to our group. My sister's a math teacher. She's involved with the Nova Scotia Math Teachers Association, and she assures me that this is not happening within the math teachers professional groups. But I think that's another thing that makes us so unique, though, is that we connect to each other, we develop relationships, we share a passion, and it's different than any other subject area. I don't see this happening in English language arts. I don't see this happening, in science and technology. Health and physical education seems to be a completely different beast altogether. We like spending time with each other. We like connecting. We like learning from each other and growing. And it's very different.
Well, Lori, as you say that, it's interesting. And I can't remember if it was on one of these check-in calls or if it was actually on one of the board meetings, but there's this cross-Canada connection and relationship amongst all of us and a passion for this subject area, and yet we're the only subject that has difficulty in having a pan-Canadian or a Western Canadian consortium or whatever you have in Atlantic Canada with all these other subject areas. Like, it's kind of ironic to me, it seems. But, we find a way to connect and support each other. And, whenever it is, and I hope it will be sooner in the big scheme of things. So, I think Peachy Canada and whoever hosts the next, face-to-face conference, it better be a big conference center, because I think this is developing, a real need for people to see each other, and the connections that have made, as strange as it may seem, in these cross-Canada check-ins by Zoom. I think there will be a real desire for phys ed teachers coast to coast to coast to want to meet people face to face whenever we can. So, and it'll be an awesome conference, let me tell you. It'll be a work hard, play hard, without question.
Definitely, and Grant, Renee mentioned the same thing in the chat box. She said because we get to play together, and missing the conferences, but really looking forward to the time when we can get together again. Kelly, did you want to speak a little bit to your response to Scott's comment?
Sure. So in Newfoundland Labrador in K-6, it came down the pipes through a formal email and letter that the focus would be on social emotional learning, bringing our students back to school, that the only 2 subject areas that needed to be covered other than, well, phys ed and music were going to be covered. But the only other 2 that homeroom teachers needed to focus on were language arts and math, but that didn't mean that all they were to do was language arts and math. What that meant was that would then leave more time to go outside, to do physical activity with your students in the classroom, to do social emotional learning activities with your students in the classroom, to get to know your students better, to get to know the families better. So while they still kept the math and language arts, they freed up a lot of other time and reduced even the expectations with those 2 courses as well, so that all the other time could be spent on relationships first, developing relationships, making sure that the students had a smooth and as best they could transition back to school.
That's fantastic. And I think that speaks to kind of stitch together Grant's comment a little bit with Kelly's right now. Like, I think that's what, like, the type of teachers that are on this call that we do, like, because of the nature of what we teach, we have to be flexible because the environment changes. Someone took the equipment and we can't use it. The gym is now full, so we got to go outside or use a portable for something. And so resiliency or, adaptability, flexibility is kind of what we do. So not that it makes it easy all the time, but I think we connect more. And then the other thing is that we do have more time to connect with those kids in different ways than sitting or standing at the front of a classroom. And so those things all come together for really good piece.
Yeah, our teachers here were allowed to put a lot of IEs, which is, I don't know, unable to evaluate. I can't remember what it stands for now. Oh, insufficient evidence, or they could just put NA. So yeah, they put a lot of NAs, not applicable. Whereas before we were told we don't want to see any NAs anywhere on the report card whatsoever, even if what you do isn't done in your curriculum until 3rd term, you still have to report on it in term 1. Now there's been a total shift of you can put NAs all over the place, as long as you can prove you're attending to the social emotional learning of your students.
That's fantastic. I do have to say, Kelly, when your comment first came up in the chat, on my phone, it only came up as lessening asses. And so I was like, yeah, that's a solid strategy. If we can make that happen in our schools, we're ahead of the game.
Yeah, that would probably be good, since we still have, some pretty big seat muscles that aren't being used across the board, I think.
So has anybody else experienced that flexibility in their divisions? We certainly have not. The expectation was definitely to continue to evaluate and assess and report out. But was there any other provinces that kind of went that way?
I was going to comment in Ontario that one of the new things that came out from our board messaging this week is that cell skills won't be part of the evaluation for the health and physical education because of the harm that it could possibly do for people that aren't assessing it properly or evaluating it properly. So further training is going to be coming as far as cultural responsiveness and how to correctly sort of evaluate those skills. So that's sort of a positive that's come out of this about looking more closely at how we look at those skills and how we evaluate them properly.
So Christine, are they written into your curriculum, or are they?
Yes, there's sort of the overarching skills behind any of the health and physical education expectations we do in the curriculum. So it's sort of, it's supposed to be tied into your evaluation. But what they're finding is that there needs to be a lot of sort of professional development around how we evaluate someone's social emotional learning, and our own biases when we evaluate those.
I'm just going to add, Christine, I think it's a it's a school board by school board decision, because in the board that I work in, they've only taken the evaluation away from the math curriculum. So in our newly released math curriculum, the social emotional learning skills have been set up as a separate strand, and teachers are being asked to evaluate them in isolation. But in health and phys ed, they're, as Christine said, they're embedded into the specifics and the overalls. So I think the timing of the decision to do this is a little bit suspect, in my opinion. But the need for professional learning is for sure important. But every school board seems to be making their own decision whether they're including health and phys ed and math.
Yes, so just to clarify, we're doing math and health and physical education. So we've pulled it from being evaluated. We're still expected to give instruction on it.
So has everyone kind of across the country seen kind of an uptake of SEL being embedded across the curriculum and not just within the health and physical education curriculums?
Lori, I'll make a quick comment on that one. It's talked about a lot, it's mentioned, so the importance of it, you know, with the conditions that we're in right now, what we're all experiencing. But I think where it falls short is a lot of educators, to no fault of their own, they don't really understand how to teach it, how to incorporate. I'm not saying everybody at all. I'm just, from what I've heard, the comments and what I've, you know, it's social emotional learning. Okay, these are feelings, or, you know, write in a journal or do a reflection, and we've done it. We've done SEL. And so I think that a lot of educators are struggling with, what is SEL exactly? How do I teach this? How do I make this a part of, you know, each day or the lessons or whatever? So I think they're, you know, reading a story about something, and, you know, kids talk about how the, you know, characters feel in the story or whatever. There's just so many, I think that lots of people are like, it's so big, I don't know how to really do this. They're just confused. So I find that it doesn't get touched on. If it does get touched on, it's almost sort of one of those check the box, we kind of did 20 minutes of it today kind of thing, unfortunately. So I think that there needs to be more education, training, experiential practice with our educators.
Yeah, in our region, we just hired a second SEL coach for that specific reason, to start going out and working more closely with our teachers, and to do some co-teaching and mentoring. And so we now have 2 for 22 schools. So we're starting to kind of go in that direction, but I think that was kind of the big impetus behind it, is that people just didn't understand and didn't know where to begin. And so they either glossed over it or it didn't happen.
It's Nikki again. I think the other factor that's difficult here in Ontario is the research for SELs is related to programs. So there's no doubt there's issues with oppression and discrimination with programs that are designed to really train kids SELs, like I've lost the name of the program with the colors, where you talk about that's sad. Sorry, I can't remember the name of the program. But so that's my struggle, is that we've had SELs in the Ontario curriculum. We call them the living skills. And then with the new updates, they were changed as social emotional learning skills. And I happened to be at the ministry at the time, and my biggest fight was, we're looking for research that shows that the SELs is what we can support in our program. And all that we were provided with were the support for SELs that are a part of programs. So as you've all said, we just need to do a little bit more research, and we need to be mindful of the way it's taught, and for sure the way it's assessed, given the harm it can do for kids. So it's a work in progress. The timing for me is just is a bit suspect for teachers, right? To keep in the middle of a pandemic to sort of put out these memos that are not clear. And then there's the memo from the ministry is so vague that every board can pretty much do what they want. So, but you're all familiar with that, I'm sure, regardless of which province you live in.
Yeah, I think it even goes, kind of touch on what Renee said earlier, but it goes, might even go school by school. So it was interesting when we went into the pandemic, went to this environment, it became very, very clear what we valued, right? We don't have time to do it all, but schools and school divisions made it very, very clear, okay, these are the few things that we value and we want us to do. And it was kind of reassuring that they said, okay, as far as assessments, there's lots, now you have lots of, flexibility how we want to assess that, or how we want to go about assessments. But we want to welcome our kids into school, and of course, touch on social emotional learning. That's really important to us, which is cool. But on the other end of it, you're right. Now we're emphasizing that almost for the first time. And like Ray had mentioned, there hasn't been a lot of, right, for us as like a whole ton of training in order to know how to do that effectively. So not for a lack of effort, like, us here, our staff, we're trying to do it. We're trying to say welcoming, not have our kids all welcome back to school and focus on that relationship building and whatnot, and touch on those. But we're still going to try. We'll still make mistakes in it. But it is nice to have that flexibility and reassurance that we can, do those few things that we value, right? So. Hey, Laura, I think you're muted. Are you saying things?
Sorry, I'm muted. I think, in our region, it has been recognized that, we have a group of educators that may not have the skills themselves to be able to teach the skills. And so looking at how do we support the adults in our building in developing their own SEL skills to be able to in turn help students develop theirs. And so we're looking at a staff wellness plan that has SEL at the center, and to see if that we can start making inroads with our adults to hopefully kind of change the tide for our students. Is anyone seeing that kind of support for the staff within your schools or within your regions? there's, we've done a lot, we've been doing a lot for students, and rightly so. But I think, the recognition that, this pandemic, like Renee said earlier, is happening to everyone. So what's happening around taking care of the adults in the system as well to ensure their health and well-being.
I think here, anyways, in Alberta, it's more of a, from what I hear from teachers and school boards, it's more of an awareness that this is important, but I haven't seen clear actions yet. But I think it's coming.
Hi, I teach in rural Alberta, and our school division has made it. They've put in a program for staff. For instance, they could sign up to do yoga or mindfulness, as well. They did a grief counseling as well. So we have a staff calendar that has the dates and the times, and you can sign up if you want to do that kind of stuff. So that's what our school division is doing out here in rural Alberta.
That's great, Fitz. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
I can speak a little bit on this. I'm Amanda, and I'm very new to this community, but I just moved back to Alberta after being overseas for a long time, and as a new administrator in a school that has been established for a very long time, I've really noticed how mental health and wellness for the staff is of importance, and I know that everyone sees that. And so what I've been trying to do is I send out these, it's called Week at a Glance every Sunday, and I have a large section on mental health, and it's for any staff that feel like they need that extra little support to reach out. There's often resources. I've connected them with counseling. And I think as an administrator, it's most important just to show up at their doors. So I try to reach everyone once a week and just ask them, like, how is your family? How are you doing? How can I help support you in your needs? Because I feel like a lot of teachers, especially now, are in what I've seen are fearful to approach me. And I know that they're overwhelmed. And so taking that time to reach out to them, I feel like has been very beneficial, especially for our school.
Yeah, that personal connection from an administrative leader, Amanda, is so important. And I think you're right, with people being a little bit to craft that time in your day to connect. That means a ton.
Yeah, I'll speak to a little bit here, like, or just on that. Like, I personally, I worry about our administrators, to be honest, right? Like, there's a lot of like us teachers will need, and the teacher well-being has, it's dominated the media, anyways, around here in Winnipeg. We've gotten a lot of attention for that, but I see our administrators who, yeah, or they're late at night, dealing with emails late at night, early in the morning. If there's something that happens at the school, that's them coming in on a Saturday or a Sunday, right, to deal with that, and yet they don't have as much of the attention there as far as their well-being is concerned. And the reality of it is, yeah, the situation we're all in is tough. Everybody's been challenged, and enough hasn't for what we're experiencing with, but
Cyril, we know you're very prophetic, but we missed it all. It sounded like your battery wore out.
I just got kicked out. Like,
it was the most earth-shattering comment you've ever made. I know it. I know it. I have faith in you, buddy.
Oh, for the big. Oh man, that's funny. Yeah, I got kicked out, and then somehow.
It's one of those ones. Can you repeat that? No, sorry, can't.
Okay, good practice for when we go remote in a couple of weeks, right? No, all I was just saying is, as far as well-being in our staff, I do think of our admin. There's been a lot of stuff in the media here in Winnipeg as far as teacher well-being and the supports that are in place, and for sure, like it's it's a challenging time. So I don't know if no matter what is done will ever feel like it's enough, because it's challenging, it's different, it's new. But I think, there certainly are some supports that are in place. So I'm certainly appreciative of what we have in our division and in place. But I was just saying, like our admin doesn't get as much attention for that, right? Like there's, I see there's emails being sent late at night, early in the morning, weekends. If something happens right at the school, that's on them to stop what they're doing and come in and deal with that. Yeah, that's where, and then it's certainly not as much, they don't get as much attention for that or support. Therefore, that's mainly been teachers and EAs, but I do worry about our men who are, of course, human as well. So I'm not sure what that's been like for in other provinces, if that's been the same thing, but I mean, that's just kind of what I felt over here.
Cyril, I think you're right. One of the conversations I actually had today was around our regional staff and our school administrators, especially with the holidays coming up, just trying to think of something something that we could do to show our appreciation, because there's all these levels of support. Administrators support their staff. Regional staff try to support school administrators, but who supports those who are in those positions, and it's really been challenging year for administrators, and the number of calls they get on a daily basis to answer questions that they don't know the answers to, and still try to maintain a sense of safety and security within their buildings has been really, really tough. And so yeah, we've had that conversation and concern around, how do we support our administrators and make sure that they actually are taking time off over the holidays, and just kind of getting some time to rejuvenate. And but yeah, it's a concern. I think it would be a concern from coast to coast. So I know we're coming close to our hour, and but I just, before we sign off, just kind of want to check in to see, what are things that you're looking forward to, over the next couple of weeks, that, during the holiday season. We'll end on a high note. No screen time.
I think there's
just checking out for a little bit.
I think there's hope, Lori. I think with the vaccine coming, and with I know it's going to be, there's still a long time to go, but I'm starting to hear way more comments around hope, and the breaks are good, and that's a good thing.
I know we tend to ask this at the end of every check-in because we're never sure if we need to keep checking in or not. But if we were to do another one of these, is there maybe in the chat, is there preferences of another time to reconnect? Okay, so I'm seeing some yes in the chat. We're looking at maybe a February, March, so not a January, which is probably a no-brainer. So we'll look for something like that. And again, just a special thanks to the staff at PHE to make this possible too. And a huge thanks to Lori, my co-host with the Mostest, who had to take the lead here since I'm sitting in a truck driving at the moment. Lori, I'll turn it over to you to wrap up.
Grant, I'm going to be on the hook for so many rounds when we actually get together. I just want to wish you all a wonderful holiday and just, you know, celebrate in everything that you've accomplished this fall, and just the fact that we've been able to be with our students and has been, I think, a great blessing for them and for us. And but I think we all need some rest and some downtime, and whatever that looks like, I hope you get lots of it and that you enjoy it. And I really look forward to checking in again in February or March and just seeing where we all are at that point in time. Like Reg said, good things are happening. You know, the vaccine is coming. You know, Grant mentioned in the chat, you know, let's not let our guard down, but there is some light at the end of this tunnel, I think, and every day we move a little closer to it. So happy holidays, everyone. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Good night.
Bye all, thanks for coming.